Hey, what's up, YouTube? I'm here to you today to talk about a book review for Dave Ramsey's The Total Money Makeover. This book gives a lot of really good advice. I'm a big fan. I've had it for a few years. It's pretty worn and torn, but you can get it on Amazon. It's a pretty cheap book now, anyway. And there's just a couple little things he talks about to try to get out of debt and build wealth. On every single page in this book, it's written down at the bottom of each page. It says, if you live like no one else, later you can live like no one else. And it's repeated on every single page. And one of the things that he stresses is getting out of debt and to cut up all your credit cards, debit cards, or not your debit cards, but your credit cards, and to pay everything off from the smallest thing that you're making payments to the largest thing, which is normally a person's house. There's a couple of things that I've put a bookmark pages I'd like to read to you real quick. All right, chapter 8. It's called Finish the Emergency Fund. And so he's talking about an emergency fund is to be able to save up what he says 6 months of expenses. So you should have that in your bank account at least for an emergency fund. If you lose your job or whatever crisis might have happened. And this is after you worry about that. This is after you've paid everything off as fast as you can to try to get out of debt. And it doesn't happen overnight, but like he says like it's written on the bottom of each page, if you live like no one else, later you can live like no one else. And he just stresses about trying to be as frugal and living within your means as possible. There's another thing that he's written. Let's see here. This is pay off the mortgage. This is one of the last chapters in the book. And it starts off with myth. You can't pay cash for a home. Truth. Bet me. First, let me tell you that mortgage debt is the only kind of debt I don't yell about. I want you to pay off your home as a part of your total money makeover. And for all the reasons stated in the previous pages, you have had to be very careful. When asked about mortgages, I tell everyone never to take more than a 15-year fixed rate loan and never have a payment of over 25% of your take-home pay. That is the most you should ever borrow. I don't borrow money, ever. Luke called me from Cleveland to tell me that some of our listeners and readers are doing what Sharon and I have done, the 100% down payment plan. The 100% down plan. Pay cash for everything. People don't think that can be done, but Luke did it. Luke made really good money. His income at 23 years old was 50 grand, and he married a young lady making 30 grand. His grandfather had preached to him never to borrow money, so Luke and his new bride lived in a very small apartment over a rich lady's garage. They paid only $250 a month for it. They lived on nothing, did nothing that cost money, and they saved. Man, did they save. Making $80,000 in the household, they saved $50,000 a year for 3 years and paid cash for a $150,000 home. They closed on the home on Luke's wife's 26th birthday. They lived like no one else, and now they are living like no one else. If you can make $80,000 per year and don't have any payments, you can become very wealthy very quickly. Keep in mind, though, that Luke's friends and relatives thought he should be committed. They made fun of his cars, his lifestyle, his dream. They were haters. Only his bride and his grandfather believed in his dream. Who cares what broke people think? You may not make $80,000 per year, but you may not need $150,000 home as your starter either. You may not make $80,000 per year, so your dream might take 5 years instead of 3, like Luke's. Ask any 80-year-old if 5 years of sacrifice is worth it to change your financial destiny for the rest of your life. Ask any 80-year-old if 5 years of sacrifice is worth it to have the satisfaction of knowing you changed your family tree. Paying cash for a home is possible, very possible. What's hard to find is people willing to pay the price and sacrifice lifestyle. It's pretty good stuff from Dave Ramsey. And if you haven't heard of Dave, check out his YouTube page, his podcast, his radio show. It's a good book. Seems like he's passionate and he's following his dream. That's another thing too. Follow your passions, and he's done that, and he's become very successful. If I'm half as successful as Dave Ramsey, then I'll be doing pretty good. So, all right, YouTube, take it easy.